Call the roll.
Hoff.
Here.
Culbertson.
Here.
Ramey.
Here.
Walsh. Here. Shields.
Here. Oh, by the way, could everyone put their name tags facing the camera?
Thank you.
Well, we got everybody here for the first time in a long time, so welcome aboard. I'd request a motion to adopt the agenda, unless someone wants to add or change.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Moved by Ms. Ramey, seconded by Mr. Walsh to adopt the agenda. Call the roll.
Hoff.
Yes.
Culbertson.
Yes.
Ramey.
Yes.
Walsh. Yes. Shields.
Yes.
Okay, well, the agenda is adopted. Next item on the agenda is the swearing in. I'd ask the people or person who is going to be testifying here today to stand and raise their right hand. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And your name for the record?
Shane Brayton.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brayton. Next item on the agenda is the communications or correspondence. We did get forwarded to us through the clerk of the township emails from Ronald Samuels. There's two separate emails. Offhand, that's the only communications I think I'm aware of at the moment. Anybody else have any communications or correspondence?
I only saw one email.
There was a second one. We'll get to that when we
Okay,
go to
we
the
did.
public hearing.
Oh, yeah, I only got one, too.
All right, well,
Sorry.
maybe there's a conspiracy, I don't know. We'll deal with that during the public hearing. Which is the next item on the agenda. So I'll open the public hearing for variance number 23011. Amy Jo Olmsted and Shane Allen Brayton, 5005 West Liberty Road. Property H-08-34-100-001 to allow a 5-foot side yard setback rather than the required 30-foot setback pursuant to section 36-75 of the schedule of regulations. Let me just summarize the procedure for the public hearing. This is in a different place in my binder since I guess the rules of procedure in mine were put to the front. The procedure generally is as follows. The chairperson opens the public hearing by announcing the subject of the appeal, the petition by identifying the applicant's name, case number, specified request, and general location of the subject property, after which time the chairman summarizes, as I'm doing now, the procedures or rules to be followed during the hearing. I will call upon the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to present their statements in support of the appeal, along with any supporting evidence. The petitioner, his or her agent or attorney may present his or her case, including presenting witnesses on his or her behalf. After which time, members of the ZBA shall report on any site inspection and any conversations with the petitioner which may have occurred. Then members of the public who support the petitioner speak and any correspondence is read. And then members of the public who oppose the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. After which time the chairperson may permit the petitioner a rebuttal within limits which the chairperson sets. After which time, upon motion, the public hearing will be closed. or continued to another specified date and time. After which time the ZBA deliberates the request and decides the issue. Or if the majority decide additional information or clarification is needed, the issue shall be postponed to a future meeting. It's a long way of saying the petitioner goes first, makes his or her case. Support and opposition are heard. And then the public hearing will close and the ZBA members will discuss the item amongst ourselves. So without further ado, who will be speaking on behalf of the variance, which is the subject of the public hearing?
Shane Braden.
Come on up. Let's just sit here at that table there and go ahead with your presentation, Mr. Braden.
Yeah, so came here today to request a variance to build a new garage at our property, at 5005 West Liberty. We purchased our home in 2010. At the point, it was a foreclosure and both the home, the residential and any other building, the garage on the property needed substantial work. We've focused several years on the house, making it livable space for us and our two kids. The garage has been something we've tried to update, but we have not found somebody willing to work on it because of the condition it was currently in. With some of the storms we had this last winter in February, some of our white pine trees had broken off and came through the roof of the garage.
Yeah, for the record, we all know that. There was, I mean, we had that kind of the back-to-back ice storm and then the heavy snowstorm.
We were
And
without power for 12 days.
everything was, yeah, we had a lot of problems. So, yeah, we understand that.
Yeah, so it came to the point we gotta do something with the garage. And with the current structure, it's not large enough to park our vehicles in, so it's mainly used for lawn equipment, tools, tool bench, and storage. This has caused other headaches without having a place to put our car. We've just recently, insurance totaled my wife's van due to hail damage. My car's in the shop due to hail damage right now. So we're trying to build something that allows us to keep our cars sheltered and meet the needs that we have for also storing lawn equipment. We have a fairly large yard, so have a lawnmower and a tractor. Not substantial in size, but yeah, looking for something that allows us to park our cars in a sheltered area and store our lawn equipment. Currently, our existing garage, you can tell was kind of pieced together. It's kind of, I don't know if everyone stopped by and looked at the property, but it's kind of 3 different sections. So it's about, I have it measured at like 53 foot long and it's about 2 foot off the property line. So what I would like to do is I work to try to see how much I can come off without having to cut down a mature maple tree we have in our yard. And also making it so I can get in and out of the driveway without having to curve into the house or have to worry about backing out into the house on our way out. We believe that what we need as a minimum minimum is 5 foot. So we would come off an additional 3 foot from the current building where it's at. And the building I'm looking to replace it with is only 40 foot long. So we would be reducing the where we're not in conformity of the variance by a roughly 13 foot with this new building. It would be a little bit wider. So the existing building is about 18 foot wide. The new building would be 24 foot wide. Again, to accompany sheltering both of our 2 vehicles. There's some other things that play a role into why we're kind of limited on space. You can see in the map, the drain field, I think that's about 55 foot off the side property. We have a septic tank. And you'll notice we have power lines that go across the back of the yard. So we have quite frequently DTE or other service vehicles. I have a lot of trees. I'll have Jay's tree turning service come out occasionally about once a year. and they need to be able to pull into the backyard without hitting that drain field or the septic tank. So that also kind of factored into this. So yeah, and I've been up here a couple times and talked to individuals and have learned that my lot is a non-conformity lot based on the width and the current zoning. Currently zoned agricultural. I'm at 132 foot wide, 2 acres total. So I think I don't meet the width or the overall acreage on zoned agricultural. At the same time, I know some of the residential area zoning has similar setbacks, roughly 30 foot, I believe, on the side properties. I don't have the one property line that I share. Obviously, I have a lot of shared property lines with the neighbors, but there's only one that would be potentially the one on the property line. And again, I feel like we're making it better. We're coming off an extra 3 foot from the existing property line, so we can at least mow and clean up. Right now, the garage is so close to the fence line, property line. Trees have grown into the garage there. It's not attainable to actually clean up the area next to the garage the way it is right now. So yeah, I think I tried to include as much detail as I could in the application, but I think those are kind of the main reasonings where we feel like meeting the setback of 30 foot would be very, very challenging.
Just for clarification, do you know when your house and barn and garage were built?
The house was built in 2 iterations. The first iteration was 1949, and there was an addition added in 1970. The original owners of the house stopped by a few years ago, and I met them for the first time. The original part of the garage was built, I believe, in 1949 with the house, and then the additions of the garage were around the same time in 1970, from what I understood. They kind of gave me the history of the house, and she had told the story of building onto the existing garage. So I believe the current garage, the base of the garage was built in 1949. Is my best guess.
Okay. Now you have a copy of the Carlisle-Wortman variance analysis?
I don't know if I have a copy of that.
How was that done, by the way?
I sent it.
Oh, you did send, okay,
It
I
was sent to
probably,
your email.
okay, I did have, yeah, that was one of the things I didn't print off though. I did have it.
Rachel.
Yep,
Okay.
that's it. I do have that, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
And the reason I'm referencing it, because you were indicating that other properties around you had structures which also encroached on the setbacks. You listed them by address, and your approximate figure on how far they encroached on the setbacks as well. But the variance analysis indicates that a survey was done to find out whether there were any other zoning variances granted, and there were none. And therefore, the logical conclusion, according to the variance analysis, is that the other structures that you're referring to were constructed prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, and this isn't in the variance analysis, the only other logical conclusion to draw is that they're in violation. But it appears that likely that just there were no variances at this point. Would you like to comment on that at all?
I would just comment that judging by my guess of age of property, I don't know exactly when the ordinance, I don't remember exactly when it was put into place, but that 70. So yeah, that doesn't come as a huge surprise that they would have been put in place before the actual variance ordinance.
All right. My cheat sheets are gone. Do any members of the zoning board have any questions of the petitioner at this point?
I do.
All right, Ms. Ramey?
Looking at the overhead photo of your parcel, it looks to me as though there's quite a bit of property to the south of where your drain field is. Is that true?
Yes.
And would it be feasible to move the building farther back so that it was just south of your drain field?
It would not because, and I don't know if you, on the drawing I made, you would see there's property lines running across right behind the drain field. I don't know if I measured exactly how far that is, but I believe there's a 10-foot setback on the property lines. It may be feasible to try to get in between the drain field.
We actually, you did draw it on the map that you have here, not, let me make sure it's the same one. I'm looking at the small one. Yeah,
I'm
here's the big
looking-
one.
Yeah, I'm looking at the plat map, which shows that this parcel is.
Yeah,
all one
but it's
parcel.
the power line right of way that's there, and I think that's what he's saying.
Oh, it's the
There's a-
power line right
Yeah, you
away.
can't see it on the
There's the power line.
map
Yeah.
washed out.
Yeah.
But according to the drawing that you've submitted, you've actually drawn a place where a new structure, 24 by 40, could be placed and meet the setback, but it would require the removal of a maple tree.
Correct. Yeah, that would be bringing it west. Yeah, bringing it south is what I worried about is we get into the power line situation and DTE is a frequent visitor, I'll say, especially this last winter.
Are you saying that the power line is across sort of the middle of the property?
Yeah, so it looks like this is the power line.
Right.
And he's saying that there's a setback that you can't build under the power line.
Right, and if you went farther back beyond,
If you
farther
went back
south
here,
there, that's the next question. I'm not suggesting that that.
Yeah, so if I went back south and then to the west, so back south behind the drain field and then 30 foot off the east property line to meet setbacks, I think I would be under the power lines at that case with the current size of the building. So I think it would be to meet both the power line setback and the side setback, I think it would require reduction of size of the building too, to meet full conformity there.
Okay.
But yeah, see, you can't see the power lines on the map washing the maps, but.
No, that's it, thank you.
Ms. Culberson?
I was just wondering if you investigated the setbacks needed for a foundation next to a drain field or a septic tank.
I did not find anything specific there. I came in and spoke to Mr. Shields several months ago. I don't know if you remember me coming in. I think it was, well, no, I'm sorry, it would have been Doug. Okay, Doug?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Whoa, I can't, spoke to a Doug and
Doug Luan for
He's
Carlisle Ward.
tell me
Much
kind of
more
what to
helpful
get
than
together.
Yeah, I believe you might wanna check that out because the county health department does have regulations around them. I believe it's for a non-basement foundation, 10 feet from a drain field and 5 feet from a septic tank.
Okay,
I think that's my
I can-
recollection from their requirements, but there is a setback
Okay, I'll look
associated
into
with that.
Any other questions from anyone?
Just to confirm, since I was out there and it's not shown, behind the existing garage south, there are two mature fir trees of some type as well. They're not shown on here, but they are pretty much, if not right up against, a few feet away from the existing structure. I just want to get that on there, not shown on this.
Yeah, I debated on showing those are, the cause of the existing damage was one of those pines and I don't want to part with them, but we had talked like we could if we needed to. The maple, feel much stronger about not trying to remove, just because, you know, the pines have a little bit shorter lifespan and they're probably getting closer to hitting that. But with this build, I think we're able to leave those alone and not touch them either.
And I have a question for the board and make sure I'm interpreting the code correctly. And that is around a non-conforming structure, and it's 36,400. I just wanted to confirm, because this is,
36.
yeah.
I was wondering, should we do this in a board discussion or?
Well, I just want,
Because I was
Well,
gonna
what are we
flag that as
talking
well.
about? I don't know.
it was a question about non-conforming structures.
Oh, you mean you're referring to the zoning ordinance?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, do we wanna do that now or later?
we can do it. There's no problem in doing it now if you need a clarification
Yeah.
from, Ms. Krebs.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that when I was reading it correctly, because this is it's the existing structure is non-conforming. Typically, if it's damaged, you're not allowed to, you have to tear it down, but because this is a non-conforming lot, they're allowed to replace it. Am I reading this correctly?
Well, yes, however, you know, he's gonna remove it and he's going to build something new. I mean, the variance would be for the new structure.
Exactly, but I just wanted to,
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
mean,
interpreting it right, they could, because it was severely damaged, if it wasn't a non-conforming lot, they couldn't even rebuild it. But they could, because it's a non-conforming lot, rebuild it if they,
If
If
a
they
variance
wanted
is
to.
granted,
no, without a variance.
no, because the.
No, the existing structure.
if
No,
the existing
because-
structure is damaged beyond 50%, it cannot be rebuilt.
Okay,
In its current location, unless a variance is granted in order to basically it's giving a variance for the new structure, right? Because the former structure was non-conforming, it has to go away if it's more than 50%.
okay, but I thought because it was a non-conforming lot, that was different.
I think you're
No.
probably, well, I think she may be right partially. But we can talk about that a little bit, that maybe we
Okay.
can defer that discussion a little bit, because we should look at that. So,
Thank you.
any other questions for the petitioner?
I have the awkward question.
The what
It's
question?
an awkward question for me anyway to ask, but
No.
you got yes.
You?
Mr. Samuels sent a letter, which I assume you saw.
I did not. I heard you mention his name before, and I know his name. I had not seen the letter.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can read
Are those
those
normally-
into the
Just,
record.
just so we know, because this hasn't come up that I can recall. And maybe Laura doesn't know this, but when an email comes in, which is apparently the preferred method of communication nowadays, despite the fact that I was born before the computer. But are those emails that come in from, for example, neighbors or anyone in opposition? Are those typically forwarded to the applicant?
I don't receive them. They are part of the packet, I believe. They should
Yeah,
have
they
been
are.
part of the packet, so
Yeah.
they wouldn't have necessarily been forwarded directly to the applicant, but they're made part of your packet and are available to the public to view as part of that.
Oddly enough, that's never come up, so, I'll read them into the record for you. But, Mr. Samuels does oppose, the request. We'll get to that a little bit when we get to the point of, people in opposition to the application.
So what I wanted to ask was, what was his response to Mr. Samuel's concern?
Okay, well, I'll give the chance for rebuttal on that. How's that?
Okay,
Why don't we,
That's it. All right.
Mr. Brayton, if you'll just bear with us, we're trying to follow the procedure. We'll get to that and then I'll give you a chance to rebut.
So my questions have all been answered. I'd like to say that this is one of the best packets I've seen come in. It was very
Thank you.
well organized, very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. I asked the members of the zoning board to report on any site inspection and any conversations with the petitioner. We'll start with Mr. Walsh.
I was out there late this morning. The site had a dog alarm, which alerted Mr.
Right about that again?
to my presence. Introduced each other. I made the same comment that Mr. Shields made, that it was a very well-organized package, and mentioned that I would see Mr. Brayton tonight.
Okay. Mr. Shields?
I went by it on Saturday. Didn't run into the dog or the alarm.
Okay. I've actually driven by it several times. I kind of go over that way anyway. But I did look at it a couple of different times, including today, when I also saw the dog. But I had no conversation with the petitioner. Ms. Ramey?
Yes, I visited the property this afternoon, just drove by and went back and forth and looked from the road, but had no conversation.
Ms. Culberson?
I also visited the property, but did not have any conversations.
Are there any members of the public who support the petitioner and wish to speak? Do we have anybody? Ms. Krebs?
No one is raising their hand.
Pardon?
No one is raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who oppose the petitioner who wish to speak?
No one is raising their hand.
Okay, I will read correspond.
No, now there's a hand raised.
Pardon?
There is a hand raised.
Okay, the person who wishes to speak in opposition to the variance, would you please identify yourself?
Sure, I want to speak in support of the petitioner. Your time frame was very abbreviated. I didn't get a chance to raise my hand.
My what?
Your time frame was very abbreviated. I did not get a chance to raise my hand.
Okay, go ahead, please, with your name and address, and I'll swear you in.
My name is Kathleen Brandt. I'm a Scio resident. I'm not obligated to give my address. Considering the age of this property.
Well, ma'am, hold on just a second. I need you to please stand and raise your right hand, repeat after me, or to answer this question. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And it's Grant, is that correct?
No, it's Brandt with a B as
Brandt.
in.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Brandt.
Thank you. I am speaking in support considering the age of the structure and the history of additions. I think it's unreasonable to ask the petitioner to do an incredible setback based on lot, not only size, but dimensions. It's a very deep lot. the person in opposition is saying that if granted, this would be more of an eyesore, which I disagree with. Currently, it's 2 feet off. The petitioner is asking for 5 feet off. It actually remediates their view. I don't see how this petitioner is not granted the option to replace a structure based on historical variance and applying modern variance to their property. It doesn't seem reasonable to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public? Well, we'll broaden it up and say any members of the public who wish to either support or oppose the petitioner, please raise your hand. There's no, and for the record, there's no one here at the meeting hall. Anyone?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, great. Let me read the emails that we received from Mr. Samuels, which were forwarded to us by the clerk. The first one, make sure I get the first one.
I think they're both the same.
Yeah.
One was sent from
No,
Kathy.
no, they're not. The first one is, it's addressed Scio Township Zoning Board of Appeals. Thank you for contacting me regarding the proposed setback change at 5005 West Liberty, parentheses H-08-34-100-001, end paren, so that I may submit my opposition to it. I own the adjacent property at 5055 West Liberty, paren H-08-34-202-001, end paren, and will not be attending the public hearing. Such a setback change may devalue my property considerably and or create intangible priceless problems such as privacy issues and may become worse if future structures are built on my property closer to the property line, either by me or by future owners. Paren, I, of course, would follow the 30-foot setback regulation, end paren. I want to make clear that this is not a petty opposition, and I do not want to harm the desired lifestyle of the owners of 5005 West Liberty. Hopefully they can find another, perhaps even better option. Thanking you for your attention to this submission. I am very truly yours, Ronald Samuels, 5055 West Liberty, H-08-34-201-001. And that is dated, I think, September 9th. There's a second one also from Mr. Samuels, which is dated September 12th, entitled Part 2, Opposition to Setback Proposal for 5005 West Liberty, parentheses for Scio Zoning Board of Appeals, end paren. It's addressed to the Scio Township Zoning Board of Appeals. Continuing from my previous submission of opposition to the proposed setback change at 5005 West Liberty, paren H-08-34-100-001, end paren. I want to highlight that just because the acre of my land that is adjacent to 5005 West Liberty is currently empty, this should not be a factor in the board's decision whether or not structures are built on this land in the future. In addition, I am essentially, at least in my opinion, being asked to make my land a 25-foot deep setback for another owner's property, land for which I have paid, for which I pay property taxes, and for which I pay to maintain. Again, thanking you for your attention to this additional submission of opposition. I am very truly yours, Ronald Samuels, 5055 West Liberty, H-08-34-202-001. Mr. Brayton, do you care to rebut anything that was sent in the emails from Mr. Samuels? Or do you want to address anything that Ms. Brand has brought up?
I just asked for clarification from the applicant.
Okay.
5055 is west of you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like the string of emails was a little hard to follow with his reasoning behind, the logic behind why this would devalue his property. He's on the west side, so he's not on the line that I'm asking for the variance on. Seems odd, but yeah, Ron had not approached me before this, so this is a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, I don't see the logic behind devaluing his property by having a reduced setback on the opposite property line where there's already existing building.
Okay. As a follow-up, do any members of the zoning board have a question for the petitioner on anything that was just said? Or on anything for that matter? Okay.
I do have one more question, and that was.
Too late. Go ahead.
Part of the issue with non-conforming structures is the amount of damage and whether it is damaged more than 50% of the value. Did that come up in any discussions? It was probably with Doug, right?
You asking me?
No, I was looking at Laura, but
Oh.
she didn't talk
She's
to
not
them,
good.
so just wondering if you price what it would cost to repair the structure and
Yeah, I have-
versus replace it.
I have priced out repair. The specific damage from the storm is less than 50% and would be roughly about 20 grand just to repair that back part of the garage. The bigger issue is finding people willing to work on it. And that's been my struggle the last several years is everyone I ask to come out to do something, they say, you're better off just starting new. You're better off just starting new. So I would consider it less than 50% damaged. And that's kind of what we're balancing if this weren't to go through is how do we have to come up with a solution. So that would be our backup is to try to put money into this. But again, it doesn't meet our vehicle needs.
Have you gotten an estimate for the new garage that you wish to have?
I had an early estimate for a stick build. I'm currently looking at a pole build,
What?
a stick build building. And I'm looking at a pole build that I'm expecting to have an estimate back next week.
Okay.
What was the estimate for the stick built?
It was 73,000 without concrete or demo, which felt higher than what I was kind of expecting. Expecting concrete to be an investment of its own. So that's what coming into this week kind of pivoted to look at pole builds. So I'm working with Chelsea Lumber right now. It's someone I got a quote from several years ago when we tried to attack this project, it didn't financially work
What
out.
was their quote several years ago?
2018, it would have been 50,000 for concrete and everything with the building, minus the demo. So
And, okay.
actually less than 50.
20,000, someone gave you a price 20,000 to repair that damage?
It started at 8,000 and then they came back out and found that some of the foundation cracked when the tree came down. So there's a clear crack in the foundation that they felt like they would need to repair. The exact, I think, was 16 and some change. It was close to 17. So I did round up there, but they were willing to work on it, which was the first person I found to do that. So I kind of, at that point, said I want to pause and I want to try to apply for a variance. Give me few months to try to see if I can work out financially and with you guys on if we'd be able to move forward with a new bill. But yeah, if you guys know contractors, I'm with trying to find people in the area, maybe advice you have.
Okay, any other questions for the petitioner from anyone on the ZBA? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Support.
Moved by Mr. Walsh, supported by Ms. Culbertson to close the public hearing. Call the roll, please.
Hoff,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields.
Yes. Okay, that closes the public hearing, and at this time, the ZBA will deliberate amongst ourselves. Part of what Ms. Culbertson brought up, I was looking at too, and we've got another, this is similar to another variance we deliberated on a few months ago. And I think that the way I analyze is the last one's the same one as I tried to analyze this one. And you start out with the non-conforming section of the zoning ordinances, which is Article 13. Now, the way I read these sections for non-conforming uses, structures, and lots is that this is a non-conforming lot. Now, I think we do mix up sometimes in error, I think, possibly a non-conforming structure. Now, the structure itself that was damaged is non-conforming, I think, but I'm not sure. You know, is it non-conforming?
It is because of its location on the lot.
Okay, well.
But what Ms. Culbertson was getting at is principal and accessory structures can be built on a non-conforming lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But they have to meet the
The
setbacks.
setback,
And
yes,
so that's why
yes,
the variance is needed.
I agree, I agree, and I wanted to make sure we're all on the same.
Yeah, and it was more about understanding the 50% piece.
Right,
And then I didn't understand, and this is for my own education, why it talked about 36,399 shall apply. And how 36,399 had any
Well-
bearing on the non-conformity.
well, I think the way
rebuild.
the way I read it, at least, was that it's the yard dimensions and requirements. And 399 would apply.
Okay, I got you.
Okay,
I
that's
see
the way
how,
I
I got
read
it. I got it now. Okay, that
And
makes
it-
sense.
Yeah, and you know, the problem is right now, as I see it, is the evidence of less than 50% replacement cost is not real firm in my mind. And the way I read these things, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. If there's less than 50% damage, the existing structure can be rebuilt. I don't know whether everyone reads it the same way, but that's basically what I'm saying. The petitioner is saying that it is less than 50%, and so it can be rebuilt. But I'm not sure of that. I kind of think that it may be more than that. And I think it might be more than 50% because the actual evidence is not really clearly there. in looking at it, and the pictures and actually looking at it from the road, my guess is that's a more than 50%.
Depends which damage we're talking about. Depends which damage we're talking about. The store damage specifically might be fixing the entirety of what needs to be done to bring the building back into a more usable is probably more than fixing the storm damage.
Maybe not.
But on the other hand, you
I'm
have
kind
the
of-
right to maintain it,
But I'm
right?
also kind of shocked at the amount of money for a 26 by 40 rebuild, a new build. I mean, God, I guess I'm living in the past, but.
We can be shocked, but is it really relevant?
Well, I don't know. I guess I brought it up for discussion because Ms. Culbertson brought it up appropriately.
Yes.
And I think it needs to be looked at. The problem, well, anyway,
So
go ahead, Mr. Sheets.
I'm maybe thinking about this incorrectly, but I'm thinking about 50% replacement cost, maybe not, versus the substantial right that a family has to have a garage that doesn't cost them a lot of money to fix their cars every time there's a hailstorm. And I'm not sure this is the right comparison. That's kind of where I'm at.
I'm not sure I agree. I'm not,
Laura may be able to help me with this, but this whole 50% or not 50% and then what you can replace or what you can't, all of that, isn't that just talking about what the homeowner has a right to do if they don't get a variance?
Correct.
correct,
Okay, and,
yes.
right,
And
and
we're here for
so,
a different reason.
Yeah.
right, we're here because they're asking for a variance. So I'm not sure I think that inquiry really govrans what we're doing here. I
It
think
doesn't,
we're back
the only
to
reason
the
I bring it up
variance.
because Ms.
Yeah,
Culbertson,
okay.
and I had to look at it too. I mean, I think you're right to
I
look
just wanna
at
make
it.
sure I'm understanding the
Yeah,
context.
Yes,
because it has to
does
do with the
everyone understand
options
what's
that they
going on?
have.
Yes, of course, exactly. Like if you just walked out of here and said, I'm withdrawing my application and went home, what could you do legally is the question. And the 50% would make a difference.
So what I was trying to do is move past that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now let's look at
Yeah.
the rest of the case.
Well, yeah, but we also can't leave this out. Because it does talk about non-conforming lots. And what's allowed, what should be allowed, because by the wording of the Article 13, because it's a non-conforming lot, they want you, according to the upfront wording of this, to meet all the setbacks. And I guess that's where we are.
Unless you have a variance.
Unless you have a variance.
Unless, well, no, yes, unless
Right.
you have a variance, yes. So that's where we are. So the next question becomes, in my mind, and I'm basing it upon the drawing submitted by the petitioner, not Ms. Culberson's comment. Could you put in a new garage, in the dimensions that the petitioner seeks within the setback? And the answer, according to the drawing, is yes, with removal of a maple tree. Now, that's with an asterisk there, because if we're talking about a drain field, sort of a setback or type of, that you have to have so many feet according to code for the drain fields, which we don't know for sure. But that might be problematic based upon what the petitioner's requested, unless the petitioner set it back so many feet from that, reduce the size of the width so many feet. But we're kind of guessing on that because we really don't know.
Unless you want me to bring up the regulation.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if that's
The real
permitted or
regulation,
not.
the real regulation, actually, that would be the responsibility of the petitioner, I think, who has the burden of proof. And I'm not saying they couldn't, if we wanted to continue it for additional information, we could do that. But, you know, then you get into removal of the maple tree or whatever.
If they wanted to Google the regulation and offer that, would that?
The public hearing is closed. We could come back with more information. That I wouldn't have any opposition to.
I don't think there's anything that stops us during our discussion of
We
looking up
could do it, but
applicable law.
yeah, I suppose we could try. But, you know, when you get into this drain field stuff with the county, I don't know, you can give
There's
it
a
a try
chart.
if you want.
Yeah, there's a chart that specifically shows what is required.
I can't believe that the county people would be able to set that out in a reasonably understood fashion. But give it a try.
The relevance of this being, it may be that in fact, they couldn't even put the garage at the 30-foot mark and still be able to clear the drain field legally. In other words, that
with the
what is
size,
arguably an alternative may not in fact even be an alternative.
Right.
Is that where?
right,
Yes.
unless you want to reduce the width of the garage.
Right.
I think we're ignoring what Patrick brought up, which is a more fundamental question. Is it a substantial property right of a homeowner in this district to have a garage that they can store their vehicles in a storm to avoid damage?
Well, let's make it even more basic, to have a garage, period.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
my personal feeling is, yeah.
I agree.
I would
Yes.
agree. Yeah. All right, minimum isolation distances, Washtenaw County, Michigan. This is on the Washtenaw County website. Let's see, a building foundation without basement has to be 5 feet from a septic tank and 10 feet from a drain field.
Say that again?
Thank you.
A building foundation with no basement needs to be 5 feet from the septic tank and 10 feet from the drain field. If there's a basement, it has to be 10 feet from the septic tank and 15 feet from the drain field.
Well, we're not doing basements here.
No, so it
So
would
it's
be,
10
but it
feet.
would be a 10-foot setback, which is substantial in this case.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that really does make that one alternative unworkable.
And you can't potentially.
Well, yeah, assuming the drawing is correct. And I'm not saying it isn't. It looks like the petitioner's done a pretty good job of saying out the measurements here.
And so you have the issues of the power line, the drain field, and a very mature and beautiful maple tree.
Well, the other thing is that, you know,
And a narrow lot to begin with.
And the non-conforming lot
Right.
in width.
well, the other thing is, and this one is something I'm really not all that familiar with, but the county is also saying now, aren't they, that you have to actually map out a replacement drain field as well? I don't know how that applies. Do you know?
Luckily, that's not our problem today.
Well, it may or may not be, because if you, well, I suppose you could, yeah, I wouldn't.
Because that, I mean, that
Suggest
depends
that-
on soils and the whole bit, so it's sort of hard for us to. But it is rather,
Well, I mean, I suppose you could get that garage in if you took down both the maple tree and the willow tree and turn it on its side. I suppose it would fit.
But again, that's not our
Yeah. Well, it is partially because if you're considering whether it can be done.
Well, I mean, if we're considering options, I'm trying, you could just move it all to the west side of the building.
To the west side of the building?
Yeah, just move everything over here.
Well, yeah, I don't know how you get, well, I suppose you could, but you wouldn't be able to get a permit to put in a driveway access to that side without getting something from the county, which is the road commission, which good luck with that. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
No, I'm just bringing up, I mean, if we're throwing
Yeah, but
things, but again,
what are the,
what's in front of us is a variance very specific to keeping it on the east side.
Well, the problem that I still see, the way I analyzed the same thing as I analyzed the last one similar to this, although they were different, is still the non-conforming lot.
but even though it's a non-conforming lot, you have a right to request a variance.
We always,
Right.
you always do.
And so it then, once you get into the variance, then it's what we're weighing as the,
Yeah,
is it a property right and are there extenuating circumstances?
we're not talking, as we have in other setback issues, putting a new structure in and asking relief for a brand new structure. We're talking about essentially replacing a structure that, should someone go out and inspect, might, if it were new, might not pass, with something more suitable for the current age and for the applicant.
Right.
And it's slightly better for the house on that side. We got 5 feet, you can clear, you can mow through there. And despite Mr. Samuel's comments, I don't see it as a huge imposition.
It reduces the nonconformity. There's
Exactly right,
fewer
exactly
linear
right.
feet
He's on
along
the other side.
Right.
No, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think it's an imposition on him at all, and then the neighbor that's right next to the garage, he's getting 3 more feet of relief.
Yes.
So I see that as you're weighing all these things out, that's another way to look at it.
Let's be honest, we all look at our neighbors' homes, buildings, yards. If I were next door and I see something new, that probably would make me happier than looking at what's there currently.
Well, the
That's a
other.
personal opinion, that's not a legal opinion.
The other problem is, again, is it's in the category of predicting the future, but if we do allow this one, then we've got a whole bunch of other over in that area.
And we've got 8 or 10 queued up.
Yeah,
Well, it's the test of reasonableness. Is this an unreasonable ask? And our future ones where they're looking to improve a structure that was built initially in the 40s, I think that's kind of expected.
what? I'm not following it just yet.
I think if I were a homeowner in Scio Township or in Ann Arbor or wherever, and I had an existing structure that was built decades ago, and I was looking to update it so I could park my cars, or potentially have a charger in for my electric vehicle or whatever, I think I would have an expectation that as long as I'm not straying too far from the existing footprint, that I would have the right to do something without making an extreme change.
I think the argument, in this case, to me, the argument is stronger that you're really confined because I think you're on a major road. And so
Yes.
getting I don't think it is reasonable, the option to put it over here has a lot of constraints. You have 2 very mature trees that are important from an environmental standpoint. You've got a drain field that is incredibly restrictive and you have the power lines. That hasn't been the situation in some of the other
Right.
ones that we've had. And I think what you're saying is you have to weigh each are there extenuating circumstances?
Yes.
And then also look at, there is a reduction in the nonconformity, even though we are building a new
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
nonconforming
whoa.
building.
We're not, no, that's not true. We're expanding it. It's 900 square feet, but, and the new one is 960,
I
so.
disagree with you. You're expanding the building, but you're
Yes.
not expanding the nonconformity.
Well,
Because the
it's-
nonconformity is
The
how
lot.
many feet are there along that boundary
And
and how close to the boundary are they?
and
And
technically,
No,
right
no, no,
now,
no.
they're 2 feet from the boundary.
No, I understand what you're
And they're
saying,
gonna be
but
going 5 feet.
the
from boundary. So I think that
nonconformity-
reduces the nonconformity.
the nonconformity is the lot size.
That's a separate nonconformity.
Oh, okay.
We're talking,
Yeah,
she's talking
that
about
is
the
also-
structure.
structure.
But as far as the structure,
Well, and to be honest, driveways are also part, and the driveway is non-conforming. This,
There isn't a setback to a there isn't a setback to a driveway.
There's
There
no
isn't?
setback to the driveway.
no, I thought we talked about that previously.
No,
Yeah.
Excellent.
We're okay.
Thank you.
I
no
think,
problem.
so.
But all we're doing is we're building on a solid structure. I mean, the driveway is the black. So we're not creating a new impervious surface.
Are you going to remove the driveway, shorten the driveway up, so you're actually reducing impervious surfaces?
I would not carry the so I would plan on at least removing all the asphalt from the front of the garage to the back, and then the new concrete would be the floor of the garage, so there would be less asphalt there.
My thought here, I wanna throw it out there, is I do feel that there are extenuating circumstances and as I've named them, the drain field, the power line, that it is on a relatively busy street and the 2 major mature trees. And also in consideration that it is reducing impervious surface and reducing the length of the structure nonconformity and improving the dimension of the distance that the current building encroaches.
There's nothing.
So I'd be in favor of.
Yeah, my comment was, as we talked about before we actually get to a motion of listing of the facts, I think it's actually appropriate that we cover them, so I'm trying to write them as we go.
Well, those who are putting together a motion. Go for it.
Just, can I do a statement of facts before we do the motion, just to make sure I have everything?
No, it should be part of the motion.
Okay,
but it might be helpful to run it by first, so that if we all have things that we wanna add, we don't have to go back and amend the motion.
Yeah, that's,
Or,
well, with Ms. Rainey, with all due respect, that's kind of a gymnastic approach to the rules of Robert's Rules of Order.
oh, fair enough.
So,
let me ask a question, because I'm not familiar with Roberts all the way through. The fact is a fact whether we approve or deny. So if we're, as a group, agreeing on facts, we should be able to establish that before we make a motion. The motion isn't determined by the facts, or isn't.
but the motion should include all of the appropriate facts.
And I'm just putting.
Which we, you know, I think we should encourage ourselves to do that as we, more and more in the future. So,
But I think it's helpful, I mean, if people don't object, to talk about, these are the facts
well, that's what I think
and
you just
outline.
did.
Yeah, I think you just did it.
Yeah.
If we,
And that's
it's
fine.
transcribed.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely a good way to go.
Yeah, I might add a couple facts in there that I'm looking at are that, I mean, in addition to the drain field and the trees and the reduction in impervious surface that's being proposed, it's a narrow lot to begin with, which was not anything that this property owner had anything to say about. And noting that we're substantially dealing with something that's in an existing location. And so whatever we're doing is a fairly minor change from what's already there.
Mr. Shields, do you have any other awkward statements?
No.
Well, then I'll solicit a motion from somebody. Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh is making notes.
I'm making notes and getting prepped, so if you want me to do it, you're gonna have to give me a minute. If someone else wants to run, go.
No, take your time.
Oh, no, I was making setback. I haven't even looked at our standard format yet.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
All right, in the matter of variance number 23011, Brighton side yard setback variance, 5005 West Liberty, for a 25-foot reduction, allowing a 5-foot side yard setback rather than the required 30-foot side yard setback in accordance with 36-75 to allow construction of a 24-foot by 40-foot accessory structure in the same general location as an existing accessory structure. The requested variance should be granted due to the following findings of fact. There are exceptional circumstances and conditions applicable to the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of use in the same district. This is a narrow lot and it is non-conforming. There is a drain field, 2 mature trees. The proposal reduces impervious surfaces and the existing, I can't say anything about the driveway just because we don't know factually anything. The driveway is on a busy road and difficult to relocate, just saying that. All right.
Power lines.
Oh, power and power lines. Sorry, I forgot the power lines. I'm trying to write this down.
Yes. The finding being that the location of the power lines would further restrict the ability to locate the property or
It restricts, all of these things restrict the options for a location.
We're getting a little bit back and forth here. Can I ask you to do this?
Yeah. You can.
We can make amendments later.
What, well,
Just go
may
all the
I
way
just,
through
may I suggest
Mhm.
that your motion to grant the requested variance is based upon certain facts, which you then list,
Okay,
and then in narrative fashion, and explaining briefly why they would be applicable, and then address each of the requirements under our zoning ordinance, exceptional circumstances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because the facts really are the ones that are findings of facts on behalf of the
and then
board.
which ones are address
And
the
well, then
circumstances?
explain how,
Okay, will do.
And
All
then
right.
explain.
I'm gonna start over, except for after should be granted due to the following findings of fact. One, there's the lot is narrow and non-conforming. And there is there are two mature trees, a drain field and power lines that severely constrict the options for a location of a garage. And the driveway is off of a relatively highly traveled road, and there are difficulties in relocating access on that road. The petitioner has indicated that they will be reducing the impervious surfaces, stopping the driveway at the proposed front of the garage. That the proposed new structure is shorter in length and proposed to be 5 feet off the property line in lieu of 2 feet of the existing structure. I did mention the power lines as a part of the limiting the options.
So go ahead with your motion.
May I suggest that we also add a finding that the neighbors to the west's objections to this have been considered, but that we don't feel that that neighbor to the west would be substantially prejudiced by someone encroaching on and set back to the east, since it's on the opposite side of the property. Offer that as an additional finding of fact.
That's, I would agree.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead with
agree.
your- All right, so adding that to your motion.
Okay, moving on, that was the statement of facts, okay?
We have a great transcription. It's to be handled.
Yes. Okay, there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of use in the same district. This is a much narrower piece of property, and it has the constraints of the drain fields and power lines. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by the property in the same zone and vicinity. It is a substantial property right to have a garage. Typically, this is a 2-car garage with extra depth for lawn tractors and things, which are very typical for a property of this size. That a granting of such variance or modification will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or material injurious to the property or improvements in such a zone or district in which the property is located. And that the granting of such variance will not adversely affect the purpose or objectives of the master plan of the township. And both of those were also addressed in the Carlisle-Wortman report. Absent exceptional circumstances which would otherwise result in substantial injustice, the circumstances or conditions upon which this variance is based do not result. Well, I guess they don't result from the actions of the applicant or the predecessors of the title because the existing structures were built prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance.
Could you say the last sentence again?
That the existing structures on the lot were erected prior to the existing zoning ordinance.
Prior to the zoning ordinance?
The zoning ordinance, correct.
Okay. All right, There's a motion by Ms. Culberson to grant the requested variance. Is there support?
I support.
Support by Ms. Ramey. Any discussion? Awkward or not? Any discussion on this? I do have some discussion. I do take issue with the size of the garage to accommodate more than simply cars. I don't think it's necessary for the analysis of this requested variance to include that. Because it's far too open-ended a discussion of what should be included. I think the only real analysis should be the size of the structure that's going to be used as a garage. I wouldn't go anything further than that. And I just mentioned that. You don't have to change your motion. I'm just saying I wouldn't support that part of it.
Do you want to amend it?
No,
So it's a concurring opinion.
yes. Concurring in part, dissenting in part, perhaps. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, call the roll.
Oth,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields.
Yes.
Mr. Brayton, if you just bear with us just a second, we'll give you a written decision. Mr. Walsh, I'll have you hand this to the petitioner. And while we're at it, I guess the staff at the township is putting these in the binders. Are you getting all these?
I take these in when I take my binder in after I finish minutes.
Okay,
So
just mention that, yes, they should be included in our binders as a record. Do you guys have them in yours? Or are they just being put in mine? I have an actual section here.
of previous.
Yeah, they've just showed up in mine.
Okay. Well, good, because I'd like to be able to keep these around.
Okay, I'll make the comments. Can
And
ask
if,
for that.
yeah, if they need additional copies, have them make them.
Oh. I don't have that. I just have my notes to the draft changes.
Let the record reflect the decision is being handed to Mr. Brady. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you all for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is
No.
any old business? Is there any old business we need to discuss? All right, I don't think there is any. Next item is approval of minutes. We have the minutes of July 20th, 2023 for approval. Has anyone noted any changes or corrections? I have found none.
I didn't see anything, but
Nor did I.
I'll admit to having only limited time.
If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes of July 20th, 2023 by Ms. Culbertson, supported by Mr. Shields. Call the roll, please.
Off.
Yes.
Culbertson, Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields.
Yes.
And we also have the minutes of August 17th, 2023 of no meeting. Entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Moved by
Walsh,
Ms. Culbertson,
supporting.
supported by Mr. Walsh to approve the no meeting minutes. Call the roll.
Goff,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields.
Yes.
All right, next section of the agenda is public comment. Citizens wishing to address the zoning board of appeals on matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda or seek information on any other matters. Such oral presentation shall be limited to 3 minutes, except a representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes to address the board. Are there any persons wishing to address the ZBA on matters
Yes.
which are not on the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay,
Kathleen Brandt.
okay. Ms. Brandt? Ms. Brandt?
Yes, hello, Kathleen Brandt, Scio resident. I would like to strongly commend 4 of the 5 board members for their action on this previous matter. Board Member Culbertson, Board Member Ramey, Board Member Walsh, Board Member Shields. I would like to highlight the proclivity of the chair to interrupt the applicant and the female board members in these actions. I have seen it repeatedly. I commend again strongly 4 members, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members who any other citizens wishing to comment on matters which are not part of the public hearing portion of the agenda?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, great. Other business. Report of the Planning Commission liaison. Ms. Culbertson, the floor is yours.
A couple of things. One, the planning commission, Monday will probably, invite a group made up of, the DDA, Board of Trustees and Planning Commission, to work with Carlisle Wortman on, drafting some updates to the, Jackson Road overlay district. We had a session with the DDA. There was one DDA member there, several Board of Trustees members and the Planning Commission, and talked through, some goals and what people saw and sort of the future of it. And so the next step is to really go in and look at, and some of those highlights are looking at appropriate areas to increase density of multifamily, multimodal transportation, look at increasing density and height and some of those things and it's within the Jackson Road corridor, the sewer district, basically. And so the thought was that we really need to continue to work as a group because it's gonna take a pretty large effort to go through that, and it's good to have representatives of those folks who have approval, also it's part of the DDA, and sort of work together on that. The other thing is the environmental sustainability climate action plan was recommended for approval at the last board meeting. So we had some red marks and things, so we're putting it together and it'll get submitted and hopefully put on the Board of Trustees agenda in October. And also you are all invited to the first annual sustainability fair, which will be in the Utility Bay October 29th, which is Sunday. So you can take your kids or your grandkids to the Halloween party at the firehouse. You can do early voting and you can come to the sustainability fair. So it'll be happening Sunday, October 29th.
And get our early voting.
And get your early voting in. It's a do it all Sunday.
Civic minded day.
So
Okay, great.
that is my report.
Is there any talk on the planning commission at all about any additional stoplights on Jackson Road?
That would not be a planning commission thing.
Well, except for, wouldn't it be part of, additional?
Planning, there would be definitely
Yeah.
talk of crosswalks and I mean, I should say that the township is approaching SEMCOG to provide a transportation planner to help with some of this planning. So, yeah, I mean, the township would have to request something from the road commission. It isn't something that we could do on our own.
Even with like a new building or plans coming in?
Those, typically what happens is they're required to have a traffic analysis, and at that point in time, then if it warrants it, they would actually ask the developer to pay for it.
Well, who does the asking?
It would be it's primarily the traffic analysis that's done for a development that would flag traffic control. And then there'd be a discussion about it.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walsh, seconded by
Support.
Ms. Culberson to adjourn. Call the roll.
Hoth?
Yes.
Culberson?
Yes.
Rainey?
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields?
Yes.
The meeting is
It is
8:27.
Got a little mail for you.
Recording stopped.